You actually have to be unmuted. Hey,
You're the wordest on it, do whatever. Just saying, over.
not empty in here. Okay, are we ready to go? Okay, so we have the technology straightened out. I believe we were recording as we speak. The owl is set up and working. So first order of business, we'll run through introductions really quickly so that everybody's familiar. I think we see a lot of familiar faces from last year. We do have some unfamiliar faces and then people assuming some additional roles. So we'll start over here with Mr. Fountain.
Down Mountain, board. Jason Saylor, school board director.
Tara Park, Supervisor of Communications and Technology Systems. Hello, Mark Russell, Superintendent. Kelsey Gardner, Good Services Director. Laura White, sub in for camping support.
James Clune, Supervisor of Assessment, Innovation and Engagement, everything about that section.
Ryan Creedon, principal of Middle School West.
Hi, Lauren Bolton, Interim Supervisor of Equity and Student Services, filling in for Dr. Champagne.
And with Lauren's new role, with Dr. Moulton's new role, you know, she was assuming a lot of the responsibilities that Aaron Dreisbach had formerly had. So you'll see some of those responsibilities now together, and we are co-chairing Wellness Committee for this year. So I'm Joe Naducci, I'm the Director of Special Education here, and as I mentioned, co-chair Wellness Committee, along with Kelsey Gardner as well. So tonight on our agenda, we'll move through introductions. We're going to give quick updates regarding meeting dates. We'll look at the triannual assessment last year, we took a brief view of what those assessment results revealed. Tonight, we want to take a deeper dive because our wellness policy is intimately tied to those triennial assessment results. So we want to make more direct connections between the results and identifying possible needs moving forward and taking a deeper dive into our triannual assessment and wellness policy, which will result in an activity in which we do a crosswalk tonight. We'll give an update on PV Woods. We're going to introduce something that we're doing at local levels, which is what's referred to as the Wellness Challenge. It does move through the Pottstown Wellness Initiative, was the original name. They've changed that to the Wellness Foundation. So we want to take a quick peek at what we're doing at local levels to help promote the health and wellness in our buildings and see if there's any overlay and garnering any grander support for what we're doing here in the Wellness Committee. So we seem to have garnered a lot of interest in those local building activities. When we talk about quantifying what we're doing in our buildings, this is a good way for us to take a peek at what we're already doing. How do we kind of visually see that? How is that visible to us as a piece of data that we can kind of link onto? And do we want to carry that over into our larger wellness committee and potentially garner additional support here within these committee meetings from representatives that are already active at our local buildings? We'll take a quick peek at some food service updates with Kelsey, as well as we'll try to get to a point where we identify any issues that anybody in the audience would like to kind of look at in greater depth. Okay, so first things first, meeting dates for the year, they've already been established, they're published on our website, but this gives a grand overview of what we're doing throughout the year in terms of those meeting dates. And we can move into the work of tonight, which will be Kelsey coming up and taking a deeper dive into our triennial assessment. How does that triennial assessment make a direct connection to what we're called to do through our wellness policy? And it actually makes up the bulk of our wellness policy.
Thank you, Joan. So this triennial assessment, we started to do this work last year. We're coming up on year 3 now of needing to take a deeper look into it. The last time we did this was in 2023 when we updated the board policy. So we're heading into that time period that we need to look at it again. Why are we doing this? So federal regulations do require us to complete an assessment of our local school wellness policy every 3 years. Last year, we did the triennial assessment with various different, people in the district. We'll talk a little bit about that later. And the purpose of it is to evaluate how well our district is implementing our wellness policy. With the goal of ensuring that the policy is improving student health and aligning with USDA standards. So every couple of years, we change the district, so we want our wellness policy to reflect those changes. And the assessment tool, so this is, the triennial assessment is widely used by all of Pennsylvania school districts. It's not just a PD tool, it's everywhere, in Pennsylvania and in the country, actually, as well. So, it measures progress areas like nutrition education, physical activity, nutrition quality of meals, all aligning with our commitment to student well-being. So areas of focus when it comes to the wellness policy and the triennial assessment, there are 7 areas of focus, as you can see up here. Some of them are a little redundant. There's nutrition education and nutrition promotion. There's physical activity and physical education. But they all tie into our wellness policy. So with the assessment piece, we did do that last spring. So April, Mayish, 12 individuals represented by principals, health and wellness staff, school nurses, individuals from the special ed department and food services department, all filled out this triennial assessment. It was represented by high school, middle school, elementary, district office as a whole. So we got a pretty good representation there. The triennial assessment is 75 questions long. So in each of those 7 key focus areas, there's about 10 questions. And individuals who fill it out are supposed to say whether or not the line item is fully in place in their school building, partially in place, or not at all in place. And then we also included whether or not it's currently in our written policy or not in our current written policy. So here's kind of an example of what a section of the triennial assessment looks like. Well, can you move that? Perfect, thank you. You can see that on the left-hand side there, it says whether or not it's included in the written policy, which we did that work for the individuals who took the assessment to let them know, yes, it's currently in our policy, or no, it's not in our policy. And then on the right-hand side there, you can see, is it implemented in the school building? So the individuals who took the assessment were supposed to say whether or not it's fully in place in their building, partially in place, or not in place at all. So as an example, you can see that first one, it's we provide all students with knowledge and skills for healthy lives via nutrition education. So is that fully in place in your building, partially in place, or not at all in place? Another example, staff providing nutrition education receive standard-based training and professional development. Is that fully in place? Is it partially in place? Is it not at all in place? So just a snippet of what this triennial assessment kind of looks like to those who filled it out. So, results. The bars are representing, the colorful bars are representing the 7 key focus areas of the assessment. And then on the vertical axis there, you'll see whether or not the entirety of the results were fully in place, partially in place, or not at all in place. And so keep in mind that these results are across all school buildings. If we wanted to do a deeper dive into elementary, middle, and high, we can do that. But overall, this is what the results said. So that, can everybody kind of see that?
What's the
Yeah.
pink one say? I can't read.
Say that again, sorry.
The pink one.
The pink nutrition promotion.
Okay, got it.
Mhm. So we're doing really well in physical education. We're doing pretty well in public involvement, notification, and assessment. So what do we see as areas of growth? Clearly, nutrition promotion, right, is one of the biggest ones that we would say is partially in place to trending downwards, let's say. Physical activity is the second lowest. We're doing pretty well though. I don't want everybody to look at this and say, oh my gosh, you know, we're really low in certain areas. We're really not. It's just kind of how the data skewed a little bit. And keeping in mind that, you know, some buildings are doing a lot of nutrition promotion, whereas some buildings are not. And it's all based on what's in those, what line items are in that focus area. So we'll kind of go and take a deeper dive into what this means, but are we all in agreement that nutrition promotion is one of the lowest? Yes, okay.
I think, yeah, and I think I know, but could you just clarify physical activity and physical education?
Right.
The difference between the two?
Yes, we're going to, so we've passed out to everybody, I believe, our current wellness policy, and then we also have copies of the assessment tool up here, so you can see exactly what those line items are within physical activity versus physical education. I don't have them off the top of my head because they are quite involved, but, for instance, physical education, we implement a PE program consistent with state academic standards, whereas physical activity is like, you know, do we get 20 minutes of activity for kids every day? But yeah, we're gonna kind of we're gonna deeper dive into these because it's a pretty involved policy and a pretty involved assessment tool.
But this is the students' answers to the questions.
No, this is building representatives' answers to these questions.
High school,
High school, middle school, and elementary school.
like the high school doesn't provide students the opportunity outside of gym.
Exactly.
So it would be skewed depending on.
Exactly.
Do you have the questions again? Do you have questions over there?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, very good.
yeah, we can pass those out too. Yes.
Over here. Or no?
That's gonna be part of our crosswalk. Mhm.
Yeah, the questions are in there. So correct, it is going to be skewed based on which building you're in. Which is why we could break it down a little bit more to elementary, middle and high. It's just like for one of the questions is farm to school initiatives. There's gonna be more farm to school initiatives at Skip Back than there would be at Middle School West, right? So
Like
there's
this,
gonna,
about 60 minutes of activity, which the high school doesn't provide.
Right.
Yeah.
right.
And it was 12 individuals that completed it, so there's only 12 people that completed it. And then we
So
average the score,
the total end size is, well,
it's 12, and it's 12.
And they completed it based upon their knowledge of what exists or doesn't exist or is in place of it.
And this raised a lot of questions for us, when we're talking about, you know, the size of the data collection. When we're talking about, sometimes as you move through it, I can speak for my own experience in completing this. I didn't have the answers to a lot of the questions that were going outside of my sphere of influence, so to speak. So we talked about ways that, what are the potential things that are skewing our data within these results? What are some of the potential ways that we can kind of stop some of that skewing? And one of the ways is, hey, do we form in each building? So if a principal's answering this, they might not have an answer to something, they might put, you know, not in place or partially in place. Versus a physical education teacher might have a better, or a wellness teacher might have a better indication of what's going on with that question in particular. So why not bring everybody together to kind of come together and answer for that building in general, to kind of take some of the skew out. However, you do reduce the number of participants, so to speak, who are answering the questions.
Right.
yeah, that's like if you have an N of 12, it's not, you can't really create or craft quantitative collection from it. It's more of an IDI, or it's a qualitative analysis. And so you want to be able to put that qualitative analysis in the silo where they actually live and, you know, remove questions that don't affiliate with them. So like elementary school has some parts of those policies, middle schools, but then obviously the high schools, they don't afford this, like, just in the physical activity side. Outside of gym, which, you know, is the full 60 minutes, and it's not every day, the high school doesn't fit that particular function.
Right, so what are the ways, so this is something that is a widely accepted tool, is it, do we ask the question, is this the right tool for us? do we have any leeway in terms of whether or not we can make changes to this tool to garner better results? Now, what are some of the populations of stakeholders that we think we would like to gain information from, such as community stakeholders, teachers? And again, it's kind of creating these silos, asking them the questions that we're going to get answers from that we know that they have the knowledge to be able to answer those questions. Versus just kind of, well, I don't know that answer, and I only have three choices, partially in place, not in place, or completely in place. And then we get one of those answers that might skew the data.
Where did all people survey?
So I believe that was on the previous slide. I know I answered part of the survey.
Would you be able to let us know whether or not, I know this is comprehensive responses for everybody that answered, but did you see differences between the 4 elementary school buildings and then between east and west?
Yes.
And so to me, aside from the overall, the differences between buildings, level buildings.
Yeah.
Probably more of an issue to address from a consistency standpoint.
Yeah.
Because the high school's one nugget and they have different circumstances based on the questions, and I understand that piece of it, but if the content received is different, whether you're at Skipback or Shrikesville or South or Evergreen, to me, that's more of something that needs to be addressed, and it equally with middle schools. Specifically, a lot of these things are covered in health, obviously, right? And so one of the things I've mentioned to Dr. Russell is about the health curriculum and how some of the content areas, obviously not physical activity per se, but the education pieces of it, the curricular pieces of it. That should be messaging that's consistent for every child in the district, in any building. So I don't know, to me, I think that should be the priority in addressing these
Yeah,
pain points.
I can take that data too and break it up based on building,
Right.
building level too.
Right.
And I did start to do that a little bit. It's lots of different graphs and data I'm working on, so I can have
Yeah,
it
it's
together.
probably overwhelming, but to get the folks that are responsible in each building in one room, so that everybody's hearing the same messaging with the same PD and the same, same set of tools. Otherwise, everybody's just working, with their best intentions, but not consistently.
And I think that was another consideration too, moving through this and saying, is there a gap in knowledge for the people that we're asking to complete the survey? And what impact does this have? How does this directly tie to our wellness policy? And what are the implications of completing the survey? So I think we recognize like an area of growth for us that we would potentially want to make as a goal area for us is, how do we get the word out about this triennial assessment? What is the knowledge the person's going to need in order to take this? How do we disaggregate the data? We can disaggregate that, break that down, and use our own tools to garner further information. I don't think we're limited to this tool. I don't even know if we have to use this exact tool.
So I have a question. We're talking about the knowledge of the 12 people who did the survey. Okay, so can we break down the 12? So we have the principals. Which principals, all the principals did it?
I have to.
Almost all the principals did it. Yes,
Lead principals?
yes,
Okay.
So what do you mean almost? Did one school not do it?
correct.
Okay, so we had 6 principals.
Yes,
They shouldn't have, correct me if I'm wrong, a knowledge gap, because they're the principal of the school. Then you have health and wellness staff. Which health and wellness staff?
it was a couple of I can get the names for you.
No, I don't need, just,
Just a position.
Yeah.
What would the
It
position?
was like a health and wellness teacher.
yeah, because I'm
Yeah.
struggling to understand the thought process of. These 12 people that did the survey should know immensely how to answer these questions. There shouldn't be a knowledge gap.
Sections.
So,
Well,
I think in certain sections, they
Yeah.
might have a very good understanding of how to answer those questions. But a health and wellness teacher might not be able to know, sections 2 and 3 in terms of,
Physical education.
what's the sound, they might be able to speak directly to physical education in the building, but they might not know how to answer some of the other sections.
And
I was just gonna say, before you asked your question, that we'll probably know more than a lot of the others. But it would probably be more helpful for principals to have certain questions answer, and nurses to have certain questions answered, and PE teachers to have certain questions to answer.
When we sent this out to everybody, we did say that, you know, please get together with every representatives from your building.
Yeah.
And leave the ones blank that you don't know the answer to. So there were some that were blank, which, you know, we were happy about, because then it wouldn't skew the data as much. If they didn't know exactly what was going on. And some of these questions are, you know, also not super obvious also, like, they're a little bit tricky to understand what they are.
Which ones? I'm curious.
I was looking through it and I was thinking that one of the ones within nutrition promotions, we implement behavioral economic techniques in the cafeteria to encourage consumption of whole grain fruits and vegetables and to decrease plate waste. I will know that
Yeah.
answer.
I will not
Maybe
know
not know
that
that
more
answer.
specific question.
But why? Because that's something we focused on last year in wellness.
I mean, if you dig into the details of the question, will I know all of what it's asking?
Yeah, in the cafeteria specifically, I guess you probably will know in your health lessons,
But that
but
was,
maybe not in the cafeteria.
but that's one of the things that was focused on last year in wellness. Was education in the cafeteria, in all the schools. We talked about milk, the vegetables, the leftovers are throwing away, the waste to prevent, ways to educate.
I remember
So-
talking about that,
Yeah, so that, and
that the
that,
education as far as whole grains and digging deep into ingredients.
yeah.
That, I don't know how deeply I would know the knowledge of that. Maybe she would know the knowledge of that more than me. I guess that's what I'm saying. It would just, like, different sections of it, or if it was somewhat of a team you would meet to talk about together.
This question specifically is talking about where in the cafeteria we put things to entice kids to take a fruit or a vegetable instead of an ice cream.
Signage.
Yeah, not signage necessarily, but making the selection
How you
better.
organize. Oh.
Yeah, like making the selections better, making it taste better, decreasing right now, an ice cream bar is $1, we make fruit, 75 cents, like that those are the behavioral economic techniques. Again, that nobody would know that if I wasn't explaining it to everybody, so, maybe that's what we need to do is explain these questions to everybody as we go down, but do we have to go through all of them? Do we change this tool a little bit is the question. I do have to fill this out for my USDA fed things that I have to do, but I can base that off of, that's. It's a little convoluted,
One
but
thing I just wanna point out with this tool though, so the tool helps to inform our policy development. In this tool, the bolded items, there are some questions that are bolded. Those are the items that have to be in our policy. The other items that are not bolded do not have to live in our policy. So I just wanna point you to that. And again, we're talking about some gaps in terms of understanding of what the questions might mean, who might be responsible for that. How do we draw from what the work we're doing here in the wellness committee that we're all kind of gathered around here, and how do we get that communication back out specifically to the buildings and having a greater awareness of the work that's going on in the wellness committee and what's going on through this triannual assessment.
There'd be more information available, if you had a committee, each building. Those to say 4 or 5 people together going through and answering this for that building.
right,
Would
And-
that be more?
We did look at that, and I'm like, okay, now we have everybody together, we've closed some of that gap, we're answering the questions as a group, so to speak, but you've reduced the number of respondents then. And then hypothetically, then your respondents should be one per building. Are we okay with that? Because then you're reducing the number of total people that have completed the survey.
Well, it's
But it will take some of the skew out of answering the
Well,
questions
yeah, but the-
that health and wellness teacher might not know.
the number, but it would improve the quality.
Correct, the number is just to try to extrapolate data.
Mhm.
I think what Don's getting to is rather than trying to extrapolate data from such a small n. Take these questions where we know the answers, we all should know the answer to these questions, go into each building. Ask each question, and if they don't know the answer, point them to the right person who knows the answer, and so that information can get pushed out to everyone else in that building.
And that
Right,
was the original thought that we had in terms of completing the survey more from a group perspective.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you
That
could
was
put,
what we had talked
to what
about.
Don's saying, you could put, you know, one meeting in each building to go over each question and review. Yes, we do this, here's where we do it, this is why it's important for the students to know, this is why it's important for the staff to know. And we'll go on to the next one, and, you know, do one by one, and
It would also give you far more information. About how consistent are each of the buildings.
Yeah.
That would give you the answers right there.
correct, Ms. White's point, you would get that differential, especially if you did the elementary schools in one group, middle schools in another group, and you had, you know, one school saying, no, we clearly do this, and the other school goes, where do you guys do it? Maybe we should do it.
Yeah, and that's when I said kind of close the gap on some of that, that's what we were talking about in terms of, do we have an understanding of what the question is asking us? Do we have an understanding how it's like moving through our building? We do have a couple of new principals that might not be aware of some of the things, some of the work that we've been doing and trying to get the word out. And I love the idea of the subcommittee, and that's why we want to kind of look at some of what we're already doing locally through the Pottstown Foundation. And garner better processes to disseminate what's going on in this wellness. And garner better, and garner increased support.
A lot of those questions do overlap from the wellness,
Bless you.
the concept wellness policy. To this wellness policy, so I think working together will help us to.
Yeah, so we mentioned that everything in bold is in policy.
Everything in bold has to be in policy.
So we have something in here in bold on the last page that says, we offer local standards in our written policy for food and beverages offered for free to students at school, including food rewards. Items offered at classroom parties and celebrations, and food beverages provided to the class as shared bathroom snacks. I thought we got rid of that. Not in the policy, I thought teachers couldn't provide snacks on their own anymore to students because of food allergies.
That was worked on.
We are.
Would-
I think there are times where you're doing it, but it has to be something that teachers
Get right into
information out, at least a week ahead of time. To any parents that need to hear it so that they have time to communicate any concerns.
Like, I don't believe we have food rewards in our policy.
So that's why we want to take the crosswalk.
But this is in bold, yeah.
Right, so we want to make sure that we're taking a crosswalk, that we have everything in the policy that we need, that we're looking at things that might not be necessary in our policy, because right now the policy is big. Has a lot of girth to it. We looked at policies from other districts, they're not necessarily as big, they've slimmed down, they've identified focus areas for themselves and what they really want to put their time and energy into. But that's part of what we wanted to do in terms of this activity, was to create this crosswalk and say, okay, here's what it is in the policy. How is it tying directly to this triangle assessment? Do we need to have it in there? Do we want to have it in there? Is this an area that we want to grow in? So I think all of these kind of activities are tying together. We really wanted to take a deeper dive into a greater understanding of the wellness policy. How do we get greater support here in terms of the wellness committee itself? How do we close some of the gaps in terms of the information that's created here, disseminated here? Everything we're doing from a health and wellness standpoint, and get it out to the buildings and possibly some of the smaller committees. So I think all of these activities are designed to question, to reflect, to look at what we have in the policy, and to make decisions that we're called upon to do through this policy for us. There's certain things that we can't change. There's certain things we can change. Let's reflect upon whether or not we want to make any of those changes. We're called upon to look at the results in the triannual assessment to make decisions and make any revisions necessary to our policy. So let's tackle some of that work here at the beginning of the year so that we have a really good focus continuing on through the year, that if we need to say, hey, we have a need in this area, we have a need in terms of just disseminating this triangle assessment, what's the best way we can go about gathering some of that data so that we get results that aren't skewed and that are probably going to inform us from a committee standpoint and our policy. So yes, we're saying, and we're reflecting on everything we've been doing, we want to make sure we're getting it right at the beginning of the year. And that we're making decisions based on what we're called upon to do in a policy. And if there's something in the policy that we don't agree with, we can change it if it's not something that's mandated in that policy.
We wanna go to our, Julian. Yeah,
Do you want me to explain the document?
sure, I think we're probably ready for that at this point.
Before we do that, and again, even me unraveling this policy, this again is a big policy. It's got a lot of stuff going on. And the question is, where do we want to focus our attention? What are the results that the triannual assessment kind of gave us? We know there's some flaws in it. How do we work through some of those flaws? Because we do have to get prepared for the next time we want to do this triannual assessment. Doing the triannual assessment can open us up to say, let's dive deeper into nutrition promotion. We can create our own surveys and get additional information to help inform the committee as well. I don't think we have to kind of stop with this triannual assessment, so to speak. But one of the things that I found, interesting is that the questions that are throughout this triannual assessment and those the 7 areas are directly correlated to each section of this policy. And it kind of just goes through one by one and attaches itself almost directly to, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly, it attaches itself to a question in that triannual assessment. So it's almost like a checklist. And then the ones in bold are the ones that we can't, so for under nutrition education, there's like 8 or 9 things there. We're only required to maybe have 2 or 3 of those things. Let's evaluate and look at the other 6 or 7. Do we want to keep them in our policy? Do we not want to keep them in our policy? And so that we can kind of get a little bit more focused. There's a lot of breadth to this policy. And sometimes we get a little bit lost in the shuffle. How do we start to focus some of our attention to where we really want to do the work? And one of those areas most likely would be in nutrition promotion. There's the nutrition promotion of all the things didn't list verbatim what was given to us from the School Board Association. It actually had 2 items and it was missing a couple of items. So a question we might want to ask ourselves, and that was one of the only ones that did that. The other ones just kind of listed them as a checklist. So one of the things we want to ask ourselves, if we have a need in nutrition promotion, we only have 2 bulleted items. Do we want to add more of those bulleted items or will those 2 bulleted items suffice?
And again, we're doing a lot of these, we are doing them, I'm not sure that people know that we're doing them necessarily, because they're pretty specific things. So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there, that we are doing a few.
Yes, when we're thinking about this critically, we're doing 2 things. We're trying to figure out, is the issue that it doesn't exist at all, the policy and procedure doesn't exist at all? Or is the issue the policy and procedure does exist, but there's a lack of communication, people just don't know it, and so we need to figure out how to share that communication. So for each thing that we want to kind of address, we want to look at it from those 2 lenses, like which is it?
Yeah, I mean, we're called upon to have this committee, we're called upon to have this policy. We don't want to make this a check in the box, we actually want to make this purposeful for us. And so that was part of the reflection we did as a new group, newly forming, and saying, what direction do we want this to go? How do we want us to focus our efforts? And how do we want us to be able to make decisions that are important to us and not necessarily just a checklist? And marking off things that we've done, and yep, we did our wellness committee, we've done our triannual assessment. We want this to be purpose and focused for us. Okay. All right. Yeah, that would be fantastic. And did I pass it out? Did we pass out the crosswalk? Sure. So part of the activity we had planned tonight, was to really take a deeper dive into the questions. So that we can reflect on, how are we reflecting it? What does this data mean to us? What are the areas of need and or growth that we want to dive into and focus on? I will let Dr. Moulton kind of take over from that point on. It's really meant to be a reflective exercise and to raise questions that we might want to take a deeper dive into.
Okay, so to take our data and make meaning from it. I created this document here. It's a little bit thick, but what I did, each heavy bolded area is each of the domains that the assessment assessed, okay? Keep in mind, your N was 12, there's 12 assessors. So each one of these is each domain. Then underneath the domain are each of the questions that pertain to that domain. The first column has the score that was received for that item. And then I have an action column and then, person responsible and timeline. So if we decide to address that item, you know, we can kind of work through what that would look like. What I want to point out is the scoring, again, just to reiterate, up top, there's numerical scoring that's associated. A score of a 2 meant that it was in place, a score of a 1 meant that it was partially in place, a score of a 0 meant that it was not in place at all. We took all 12 responses and we got an average. Okay, so your score is reflected as an average, that's what the current score is. The items that are bolded with a star are the items that I indicated had to be in the school board policy. Okay, so those are things that had to be in the policy. So you want to start kind of looking at those bolded items and looking at our score. I then created basically an arbitrary cutoff because we had to have something that was guiding us. So if a score of 1 is partially in place and a score of 2 is perfectly in place, I chose a cutoff equal to or less than 1.3. Might be something that we want to really start gazing our eyes towards. Okay, so how do we take all this data and make meaning? And then highlighted those sections. So if you see the highlighted ones, those are all scores that were equal to or less than 1.3. So those are areas of potential growth that we could work from. The other thing that I want to highlight, one of the things that you might want to notice, one of the concerning things would be something that was highlighted and bolded, meaning that we had a low score and it also had to be in our policy. There was only one item that fell in that category, and that was the last item, I believe, in the whole assessment. We scored a 1.2 on that.
Good
So-
averages, yeah.
Yeah, so just, you know, that might be something that might be a good starting point if, you know, if I was to kind of tackle this. But basically, this document is just supposed to take a lot of data and how do we use it and how do we create, you know, action items towards it. So what we wanted you to do is kind of look through these items, look for our current policy and just kind of mark off, you know, sections that you think maybe we should start addressing. And then as a team, we can kind of get together and decide, you know, where we want to go from here and what our action items might be. We have this as a Google Doc, we can take notes on it, and keep it as a running document to keep us moving forward with this works.
I think this is great, this document's awesome because I'm striving to get back, I know wellness was so tied to COVID for a long time and then post-COVID, getting back to some of these things are great. I mean, this is a great document to definitely be able to help out with. I think the easy answer to this one is, does everything that's in our vending machines fit that smart snack in school? It's not saying that it doesn't, it's just saying that people that answer the question aren't really sure.
Right, and so is it a communication issue?
Correct.
Do they just not know? Or is it a policy issue? So when we're looking for action items, that's what we also need to break down. Is it communication or is it a procedural breakdown?
And if it's communication, we talk a lot about, and again, if I misused the word, but we talk a lot about. How do we create a campaign, so to speak, a blitz of this health and wellness? We want this to be purposeful. We want our buildings to have a better understanding of what's going on in these types of communities, because that's what we're meant to do.
They're easy fixes, correct?
They're easy fixes, and not just our buildings, but also our other stakeholders as well. How are we pulling in the community? How are we garnering additional support? We'd like to see more faces here, and if we can start closing that gap of understanding potentially for some people. About what we're kind of the focus and the purpose of our group is and how it's already aligned to some of the things we're doing in our local buildings. Oh, okay, you know, and then how do we start blitzing and campaigning with the community stakeholders to say, here's what we are doing. We want to promote nutrition. We only can control what we can control in the buildings. How do we start to get out information? A lot of it has to do with education. How do we start educating the public? We can educate kids all we want in front of us. How do we start leaking out to the public entities? How do we start leaking out to the community? How are we giving parents the information that they need to making smart choices about nutrition, health and wellness in their own homes as well? So we look at this as a huge reflection. Let's start to look at our purpose and our focus do we need to slim down this policy, or do we leave the policy it is and we chunk through it? But at the end of the day, how are we garnering additional stakeholder involvement in this and creating a bigger campaign?
Like, look at, we encourage
Lack of
students and
better
families to use their physical activities such as playgrounds, ball fields, outside school hours, and school. Like each zone, high school, that provides that opportunity. You have YMCA not preschool, but before school.
Early care.
Early care, which then matches the other item in yellow, which says that we partner with. Community members of organizations like the YMCA, which we do offer early and after care, that do push these activities, because when you're in that before care, you're not just sitting in a room doing nothing, the weather's nice, kids are going outside playing sports, or, hanging outside of the jungle gym, if the weather's not nice, they're doing activities inside the building. So there it's just communication issue.
Yeah, how do we create a playbook? Let's get a playbook.
We
in
encourage
this.
walking and biking to school, we actually. Didn't we just add the bike things last year?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of it is people don't know.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't mean that the answers to this were actually correct in terms of what is going on. It means that the perception of the person who's answering the question, that was their perception.
Yeah.
So do we need to change the perception because it does exist through communication or, something like that? Or is there a breakdown in what we're doing? And is there something that we should be doing instead?
Are the answers blinded?
You mean that we can't tell who?
Meaning, could you go back to, someone that answered this for that and say, hey, we just wanna have a conversation, let you know that we do offer that, here's where we
Yeah,
offer
we
it.
can,
We
yeah,
can.
so we can.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, we absolutely can.
Yeah, so we have work to do. And we just wanted to introduce some of the work to committee, because we're the working committee. And we want your feedback, so, tonight, we're gonna start on this, I don't know how far we'll get with it. But I think the crosswalk is important for us to gain a really good understanding what's in our policy and how it relates to this triennial assessment, where do we wanna put our focus? So are we comfortable, do we wanna join up with small groups?
Are you looking to prioritize these items? Are you looking for direction on priority, or what are you looking for specifically? Actual action steps?
No, I mean, you go as far as you think you can go in the time allotted, just what areas do you think maybe we need to focus on? If you have some ideas of action items, please jot them down.
I think that that's a good start right now, just kind of getting an understanding of, again, how does this match our policy?
And if there's something that you see, like you're saying, that you think is a communication breakdown, please note that.
Are we focusing just on the highlighted items or? No, anything, cause I noticed the highlighted items are really scored.
That's what we scored low.
Right.
So to me, if we're going to create an action plan, if we're gonna look for areas of growth, to me, those are our areas of growth. The other ones seem like that they were kind of firmly in place.
Yeah, we can start with wonderings in that actions kind of section. You can start with, okay, I've just read through public involvement notification assessment, I know this score, let me read through what I know we must have in the policy. Let me read through all the items that are in the policy. If I'm reading through all the items that are in the policy, I'm like, oof, that doesn't resonate with me, or you can make a note. Hey, this isn't as top priority as some of these other things. I was going through this and I was making my own wonderings about, well, is this, so some of our discussion tonight is directly the result of our initial wonderings about what came out of triennial assessment and how it relates to the policy. And so we just started asking questions. So I think that's a really good place to start. About, let me read through this, let me get an understanding of what our score is, and let me jot down some of the questions I might have about that.
Do you wanna make it a homework assignment, since we have the other meeting at the top of the hour, or do you wanna, we.
So about 15 minutes.
Yeah. How about this?
We could, some of, policy, we could review this, the policy, and then give it, drop back off at district office.
We could do that. Lauren, what are your thoughts on that?
Or drop it off wherever it's best to get to the people that needs to.
Out of sight, out of mind,
And it'll get to this room, back to.
yeah, yeah.
They'll take care of it.
Totally not off, just
Same cost.
sharing with everybody else.
We could share it with everybody on a Google Doc. I don't mind the idea of taking this home for homework. I don't know if everybody in the room is going to take this home for homework. Let's just put it that way, Mr. Saylor, that you might be a very good homework completer. I suspect you are.
Don't
confident.
say,
Please confident.
say we don't do our homework.
I'm saying we all have a lot of responsibilities.
I know Dr. Sadler wants to do the homework too. I saw her, when I said homework, she got all happy.
I think maybe if we take maybe about 5 to 10 minutes, we'll culminate with this activity. I think it would be good if we kind of each take a section maybe to say, so we're not, again, there's a lot going on in this policy and there's a lot going on in this packet. Mr. Fountain, Mr. Saylor, do you have a preferred section you would like to kind of look into? Or do you want to just go order by order?
We'll take page 9.
You guys are taking page 9? I did not catch your name. Anne, I know you've attended before. Anne, would you like to join with Dr. Cruz and Mr. G? Absolutely. Do you guys have a preferred area that you would like to dive into?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. 1-5, there's no.
Page 1, how are you?
Page 1.
And I don't know if I mentioned this, never, but the score is the heading, is the overall score that section.
Yeah, be careful. There's
And we both were doing page 1.
So we need to know that all activities, size. Or there's one story there.
Once a week.
From
Last one.
this wall to the walls.
And I always do my homework.
No, you. You know, there's a lot of reasons I did say that.
I realize that's not. That's fine, yeah.
Try to make sure 50% of your sort of activities involved this kind of business.
I think
So that you're gonna find out where you should be, where the moves.
That's what I mean about that. Yeah.